So we've been watching coffee out there on the store shelves for almost a year now. And I've been telling you that the coffee production in Brazil had been bad last year. And as we go into the harvest season this year, we're kind of like, what are the numbers going to be like for the Brazil this year? And I'm going to be getting into that. But let's say this. Not only do we have an issue, a supply shortage out there of coffee beans, we have inventories coming down, but we have major players in the market like McDonald's, Starbucks, and Wendy's changing their formulations of coffee due to the fact that they have significant shortages of Arabica coffee beans down south. Now, we're going to jump into those and a whole bunch more numbers and talk about what it means for you. But yeah, there is a shortage, folks. Hey everyone, welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade, so we do get into the numbers. I try to get you the information and then let you guys make decisions for yourselves. I try not to tell you what everything means in the sense of what you should do and all that kind of stuff, but I will give you my opinion along the way. But I give you the data. And that's something different than a lot of commentators and everything like that. They'll just tell you what they think and what it should mean for you, but oftentimes they won't give you all the information, and that's what we try to do here on this channel. So Bloomberg is out there projecting that Brazil's Arabica harvest is to be bad again this year. That's going to be a third year in a row. Basically, just like we see with a lot of things out there, we've had bad wheat harvests, and people say, well, why is the price of wheat down then? I was over watching some pinball, and he asked that question, and, you know, it's like, it doesn't make any sense. And you're right, it doesn't make any sense. Basically, we see the prices on a lot of these futures markets manipulated up and down, primarily not by producers, but by people who are purchasing these commodities. So wheat prices have come down mostly because a lot of these big corporations are forcing the price of wheat down, even though inventories are dropping dramatically. So something similar is happening in coffee there as well, but we are seeing prices rising significantly as they can't really contain the price increases because there are shortages really seriously developing out there. Now, for coffee, we need to have two separate markets here, right? We got the Robusta coffee, the cheaper, it's about half the price of the Arabica coffee. Now, the Brazil's Arabica coffee is going to be bad again this year. They're a major player in that. That's the more expensive premium blend. McDonald's, Wendy's, and Starbucks all using Arabica beans. And they're starting to use Robusta beans in their mixes because they just can't get enough. So Brazil, that's one. Two, Indonesia. Robusta harvest crop in Indonesia, it's projected to be the worst in a decade. They're getting way too much rain. Brazil's not getting enough rain. Indonesia's getting way, way too much rain. Vietnam getting way too much rain as well. We're seeing shortages of coffee beans developing in Vietnam and in Indonesia. And this is causing problems, especially as people are buying more Robusta beans instead of the premium Arabica beans. So what's that say? Well, Robusta beans are at a 12-year high price. They are just going up vertically. Everyone's trying to grab them up. And what we're going to be seeing here is your premium coffees are going to go up in price. The Arabica beans are going to go up in price. But we're going to see the biggest shift in the cheap Robusta bean coffee. So when you want your Folgers, your Maxwell House, and all that kind of stuff, the cheap coffee beans, those are coming up dramatically in price right now, and we're seeing that. So Vietnam, heavy rainfall. We see excessive rainfall in Colombia too. You know Colombia. I mean, not only do they do the white stuff, but they also make coffee, right? So let's look at the big picture. What kind of numbers are we seeing worldwide? From October through March, we saw coffee exports from all countries dropped by 6.4%. That's a pretty big drop in coffee beans. That's year over year. But April, it got even worse. Vietnam, exports from Vietnam coffee down 22% versus last year. Colombia, down 15% compared to last year. Brazil, down 19% compared to last year. And all of these places are being impacted heavily by El Nino. The El Nino weather system is just bad news for a lot of these places, especially Indonesia, Vietnam, and we're projecting that's going to be bad news for Brazil as well. So all this to say, we're seeing the stockpiles of both Arabica beans as well as Robusta beans are dropping dramatically. Now there's not like as much of a stockpile out there of coffee beans because people want them fresh, but where they do track the inventory levels, they're seeing inventories across the board dropping. This is starting to be recognized in the price of coffee going up, but once we start getting certain points, we're going to start seeing spotty outages of coffee. Now, if you live in the United States, you're probably just going to end up paying more for coffee, and some poor person in Tanzania or the UK where they don't like coffee quite as much, or somewhere where coffee isn't quite as much of a staple, probably we're going to keep seeing stuff on the shelves, but there's the whip effect, right? We've seen this with eggs. We've seen this with other things. When you start having a shortage like this, you can get this, where everyone starts trying to buy in. They're trying to buy up the supplies. And this is not like, oh, grandma went and bought 2 extra canisters of coffee at the store. We're not talking about that. We're talking about corporations. We're talking about corporations go in and place billion-plus dollar orders in order to lock in contracts. We see McDonald's run out there and start making major purchases and stuff like that to lock in their contracts so that they never run out. And then you have your store, your generic coffee at your store. They didn't lock in their contracts, and they lose out. When they go out to the market, there just isn't any coffee there. Or the coffee that's out there is just so stinking expensive that they can't afford it because it's going to cost more to buy coffee than it is that they're going to be able to sell it to everyone. So they're just going to stop making coffee. And when you show up at the store shelves, suddenly all the generic brands are just gone. And even the name brands may start having issues with their supply chain because they may not be willing to go out there and lock in their contracts a long time in advance. Who knows? Some country out there like Saudi Arabia could just buy up a whole ton. And by a ton, I mean a ton of tons. They could just buy up a whole bunch. Other countries can do that. If they see the prices of coffee going up, they may just speculate a little bit. You may see traders, corporations just stockpile a whole ton of coffee. And this is kind of what we see when we have these shortages kind of happen. And that's kind of why we saw the egg prices come down so dramatically, is because apparently a bunch of corporations were hoarding eggs. And then they needed to sell the eggs because you can't store eggs indefinitely. And so they started dumping the eggs on the market. So we went from shortage and extreme price increases to suddenly eggs costing less than what they did a year ago. And this bullwhip effect happens all the time in the markets. So as we're seeing this shortage developing, do not be surprised if you see coffee disappear from your shelves for a period of time. It could absolutely happen. Now, if you're addicted to the bean, you might want to think about that. Now, freeze-dried lasts longer. You can store that better than the, like the crystals and stuff like that, the instant coffee. You can store that stuff longer than you can the ground black coffee. You can store whole bean coffee, roasted, longer than you can store the ground stuff. And of course, you can store green coffee beans a lot longer. Unroasted coffee beans, and if you're willing to roast them yourselves, one, they taste fantastic, and two, they just last very long time. Very long time. So there's some thoughts out there for you. You might want to stock up a little bit, grab some extra coffee for yourselves, for your family. If you're into that kind of thing, if you just like don't like coffee whatsoever, there's going to be a whole bunch of people on here like, I don't drink coffee. And honestly, I mostly just drink coffee when I go out. So I drink coffee at church. I used to drink coffee at work, but I don't really seem to make it so much at home. It's nice when I get it, but I should probably make some tonight just to savor the delicacy of something that may be disappearing. So we're not going to see like complete outages over a long period of time, but we are seeing, like I said, we're seeing shortages developing because we have bad crops in a bunch of different places. So somebody's going to have to stop drinking coffee, but once again, that's probably going to be people in poor countries, poor areas who aren't willing to pay a premium for it. All right, folks, hopefully that gives you a heads up on what's coming. Expect higher prices, expect some spotty outages, and please do keep your reports on coming on what you guys are seeing out there in your stores and in your places. If you want to help out the channel, please do hit that thumbs up button. If you want to make sure that you keep getting content from this channel, please do hit the subscribe button. All right, folks, if you want to check out one more video from me, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.